About action. Andrew Rudman is the director of the Mexico Institute with a deep knowledge of policy and immigration. Andrew, let's begin with President Biden. He's in office. Gallup finds immigration is now voters' #1 concern. The border wall actually now has majority support in our country, highest ever, according to Monmouth University. Is President Biden taking the right action?
Well, Chance, thanks for the invitation. I think we have to remember that migration is an incredibly complicated issue and something that governments have been trying to deal with for decades here in the United States, in Mexico, and frankly around the world. So I think what the Biden administration is trying to do is manage in both short term and long term. And I think we need to remember that migration is a long-term problem. I think a lot of times people are looking for a quick fix. The reality is you have millions of people, literally millions of people moving around the world trying to get to a place that is safer for them and for their families. The pictures you're showing now, I think, underscore that really well. And so you've got people on the move, and the question is, how do you create conditions where they are so that they don't have to migrate? And that obviously is not something you can do quickly. So I think that the challenge is, how do you create a situation where you can adequately process, review asylum claims and understand who's coming in? Because I don't think anyone really suggests that, the border should be wide open and anybody should be able to cross without us knowing.
Yes. I mean, the law says it can't be unfettered. Public polling says they don't want it to be unfettered, and a majority of Americans feel that too many people are coming across the border, many unlawfully. And if you look at people who are deemed eligible in the end for asylum, it's not a majority at all. I think it's like 15%, right? So President Biden, we know, is considering executive action, but also maybe something else to say, I can't do executive action. I need to go through the proper channels, the agencies. That can take months. Is there anything he can do right now?
Well, I think that's exactly the point. You look at our immigration laws haven't really been updated since the 90s. And I think he has attempted executive action, as did President Trump. But, the challenge sometimes with executive action is it's often subject to court action. So you pass an executive action, and then there's immediately a court challenge and an injunction, which could come really from any direction. So I think that executive actions are probably not the solution, certainly not the long-term solution. But instead, what we really need to do is figure out ways to, as I said, process those who are already there, and then try to work on creating conditions to discourage it. You're absolutely right. Most of the people coming are economic. It's for economic reasons, and that isn't grounds for asylum.
Former President Trump, he's also going to be there tomorrow, different area, but he came in talking in 2015 about invasions and crimes and drugs and rapes and all this crossing the border, and many people, they still think he's terrible for that. They were like, I was right, day one, I still don't like him. But if you look at this politically and getting movement on it policy-wise, was he effective?
Well, I think if you look at it, really comes down to who's migrating, what are they trying to accomplish, and I think the vast majority of them are not the criminals, not coming to steal jobs or commit crimes or traffic drugs, as I think is often portrayed. So from that perspective, I don't think it's an accurate characterization. That doesn't mean that nobody crossing the border intends to do harm. We're not that don't be that naive, but. I think he raised some issues, and certainly the awareness of the fact that you have millions of people moving around the world trying to come into the United States, and that we need to address that. I think that is correct, and that's really something both administrations had in common. The question, I think, is how do they move forward?
And how do you preserve legal immigration? Because it does also help our economy in enormous ways, legal immigration. Andrew Rudman, director of the Mexico Institute. Thank you, sir.